Battle of the Brains, presented by Virginia 529, Central Virginia's ultimate high school academic quiz show. Today's match features Trinity Episcopal School versus Nansemond-Suffolk Academy. Let the battle begin.
Hello and welcome to Battle of the Brains, Central Virginia's longest-running high school academic quiz show. I'm Cheryl Miller. Our competition welcomes teams from schools all across the Commonwealth of Virginia. The academic athletes joining us today, the Titans of Trinity Episcopal School, coached by Pauline Crowling and Ned Trice. Trinity Episcopal School is just south of the James River in the city of Richmond, a private liberal arts high school that has an enrollment of about 500 students. It was Richmond's very first international baccalaureate school. Also with us today, the Saints of Nansemond-Suffolk Academy, coached by Marianne Conrad. An independent school, Nansemond-Suffolk Academy has 2 campuses in Suffolk, Virginia, serving nearly 900 students in pre-K through grade 12. Its mission is to engage them in personal growth, inspire them to discover their passions, and empower them to make a difference in our world. Welcome to all the students, and great to have them with us here today. Our match will consist of 3 toss-up rounds and a category round. Players will buzz in, but wait for me to call on them before giving their answer. Any interruption of questions with an incorrect answer will result in a point deduction. There is no deduction for an incorrect answer to a completed question. All right, students, good luck. Here is the first toss-up round. L. Ron Hubbard is the founder of what 20th century religion?
Scientology.
Vincenzo. That is correct, Scientology. The Native American Nez Perce of Oregon and Idaho were erroneously given their identity by early 18th century French-Canadian trappers, the tribal name being French, translating to mean what? It translates to pierced noses, which tribal members did not have or practice. Several universities, such as Alabama and Texas, have the letters A and M tacked onto their names. What do the letters A and M stand for?
Arts and math.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk? Austin?
Agriculture and marketing.
It's actually agriculture and mechanical. President from 1971 to 1979, Idi Amin was the brutal and despotic leader of which African country? Austin.
South Africa.
That is incorrect. Trinity Episcopal? Spencer?
Niger.
It's Uganda. More than 1/3 of the world's supply of this gas comes from wells northwest of Amarillo, Texas. Name this gas that is used for detecting leaks in the NASA space shuttle, cooling MRI machines, inflating balloons. Hayden.
Helium.
Correct. And if inhaled, it changes your voice. The City of Angels has 2 National Basketball Association franchises. One is the Lakers. Name the other. Matthew.
Clippers.
Correct. In 1986, 2 mathematicians named Williams and Dubner found that a repunit, a number formed by 1,031 ones in a row, had no other factors but itself and 1. What? Matthew.
Prime.
That is correct. That's the term for such a number. As of October 2023, who is the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? Hayden.
Rishi Sunak.
Correct. At 6,684 feet, Mount Mitchell is the highest point east of the Mississippi River. In which southern state is Mount Mitchell located? Hayden.
Georgia.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk? Austin?
Tennessee.
It's actually in North Carolina. Foraging societies tend to exhibit what phenomenon in which tasks are assigned to different people by age, gender, or other social distinctions? Hayden.
Hierarchy.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk? Catherine?
Classes.
It's actually called division of labor. Reconnaissance is defined as a preliminary surveying or research. Spell reconnaissance. Matthew?
R-O-C... No, never mind. Pass.
Okay. Austin?
R-E-C-O-N-A-I-S-S-A-N-C-E.
You missed an N. It's R-E-C-O-N-N-A-I-S-S-A-N-C-E. All right, teams, watch the screen and listen carefully. Here is a Virginia-based video question from a member of the Battle of the Brains Brainy Bunch, and you must wait until the question is completed before buzzing in.
Popularized during the Renaissance, this form of painting applies liquid paint to wet plaster. When it dries, the painting becomes a solid part of the wall or ceiling on which it was painted. Michelangelo's ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and Leonardo's Last Supper are examples of what?
Hayden.
Frescoes.
That is correct. Fresco paintings. And that buzzer is the end of our first round. Good job by our team so far, but a lot more questions to come. Up next, we'll introduce today's players, and then they'll take on the category round when Battle of the Brains continues.
Battle of the Brains is always available. Find full episodes on YouTube and follow along with Battle of the Brains on social media. Welcome back to Battle of the Brains.
And here are the scores following the first toss-up round here on Battle of the Brains. Trinity Episcopal School with 60 points. Nansemond-Suffolk Academy not on the scoreboard yet, but we've still got a lot of the game to come. We'll get back to our match just ahead, but first let's introduce you to today's players. First, our team from Trinity Episcopal School. They are the Titans, coached by Pauline Kroling and Ned Trice. First up is Vincenzo Barafato, who is a sophomore, is a member of the Trinity track team and track and field team, and enjoys playing soccer and working at a local restaurant. Next up is Spencer Anthony. Spencer's a junior who runs cross country and enjoys programming. Our team captain is Matthew Wadelick, who is a sophomore. He plays baseball. He also is a runner. He enjoys math and science. And wrapping up our team is Hayden Veach, who is a junior. He's captain of Trinity's robotics team, enjoys computers, guitar, skiing, and biking. Our team from Trinity Episcopal School. Great to have you here with us today. Now, here's our team from Nansemond-Suffolk Academy. They are the Saints. Their coach is Marianne Conrad. First up is Catherine Conrad, who is a junior, student council president, member of the varsity cross-country team, the swim team, and the soccer team, and is president of both the Haitian Awareness Club and the Women in STEM Club. Our team captain is Austin Hunt, who is a junior, is a member of the varsity soccer team, enjoys fishing and listening to music, and is also vice president of the Haitian Awareness Club. Next up is Charles Creighton, who is a junior. Charles is student council treasurer, plays on the varsity tennis team, and has 2 dogs that he enjoys, I'm sure. And wrapping up the team is Adi Barot, who is a senior, is class vice president, plays on the varsity soccer team, and is a member of the Operation Smile Club. And that is our team from Nansemond-Suffolk Academy. Great to have all the students here with us today, and now they're going to take on the category round. Each team will select one 10-question category from today's choices. If they get all of the questions correct in the allotted time, they will receive a 20-point bonus. Teams, take a look. Here are today's categories from which you may choose. They are ancient deities, where is the state capital, and international food. And we do note that in this round, only the captains can officially answer for the team, though they may confer with their teammates to try to come up with the correct answer. By the rules, the high score team gets first choice of category. So Trinity Episcopal, Matthew, talk it over with your team. Tell me what you'd like to play.
We are going to go with ancient deities.
All right, from the following clues, identify the deity. The first is the Roman messenger god.
Mercury.
Correct. The Greek brother of Zeus who ruled the sea.
Poseidon.
Correct. The Roman wife of Jupiter.
Pass.
That would be Juno. The ruler of the Norse gods.
Odin.
That is correct. The Greek mother of Persephone.
Pass.
That would be Demeter. The Babylonian goddess of love and fertility.
Pass.
Ishtar. The Egyptian ruler of the dead.
Anubis.
That would be Osiris. The ibis-headed Egyptian god of wisdom.
Pass.
Be Thoth. The Norse thunder god.
Thor.
Correct. And the Greek god whose oracle was at Delphi.
Apollo.
And that is correct. Good job on that category by our Trinity Episcopal School team. All right, Nansemond-Suffolk Academy. Where is the state capital or international food? Austin, talk it over with your team quickly. Let me know what you'd like to play.
We're going to do where is the state capital.
All right, identify each of the following U.S. state capitals from its location. The first is on the Charles River.
Charleston.
Be Boston. Closest to Lake Tahoe.
Portland.
Carson City, Nevada. The southernmost state capital.
Honolulu.
Correct. The southernmost that's on the Mississippi River.
Baton Rouge.
Correct. Louisiana. Closest to Narragansett Bay.
Can you repeat that?
The closest to Narragansett Bay.
Pass.
That would be Providence, Rhode Island. The northernmost capital.
Juneau.
Correct. Alaska. On the Hudson River.
Albany.
New York, yes. On the Rio Grande.
Santa Fe.
Albuquerque, New Mexico. On the Delaware River.
Trenton.
New Jersey, correct. And on the Willamette River.
Sacramento.
That would be Salem, Oregon. That's a tough category. Had to know your geography as well as your capitals. Good job with the category round by our teams. Up next, we'll have another toss-up round when Battle of the Brains continues.
Miss a week of Battle of the Brains? Or want to catch up on a full season of Battle gameplay? Find full episodes on our YouTube channel. Welcome back to Battle of the Brains.
Here are the scores following the category round here on Battle of the Brains. Our team from Trinity Episcopal School with 85 points. Our team from Nansemond-Suffolk Academy with 25 points. And now it's back to Battle of the Brains and another toss-up round. And just a reminder for our teams, you do lose points if you interrupt a question with an incorrect answer. The other team will then have the chance to answer. And there's no conferring in the toss-up round. Here we go. What is another name for a baseball catcher's glove? Hayden.
Mitt.
Correct. In the Star Wars universe, who is Kylo Ren's maternal grandmother? Full name required. Charles.
Leia Organa.
That is incorrect. Trinity Episcopal. Vincenzo.
Padme Amidala.
That is correct. What 2017 song by Imagine Dragons, whose video features Dolph Lundgren boxing, begins with the words, "First things first"? Hayden.
Believer.
Correct. While he may be regarded as the father of calculus, he invented the first reflecting telescope and the sextant. Hayden.
Isaac Newton.
Correct. What is the name of the Canadian power trio best known for their albums 2112 and Moving Pictures? Classic rock band, Rush. The 7 Years' War, the American Revolutionary War, the Crimean War, and the Spanish-American War were all formally concluded by treaties signed. Catherine. That is incorrect. I'll finish the question for Trinity Episcopal. Were all formally concluded by treaties signed in what?
Paris.
That is correct. What European capital? Paris. This city's downtown was built on the site of Fort Duquesne. Name this Pennsylvania city. Austin.
Pittsburgh.
That is correct. What is the only major U.S. city in the lower 48 where you can drive south to reach Canada? Matthew.
Buffalo.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk? Did you want to buzz in? No. Okay, that would be Detroit. Which political party was formed by former President Theodore Roosevelt? Hayden.
Progressive.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk? Catherine?
Whigs.
That is incorrect. It was the Bull Moose Party. Her home on East Lee Street in Richmond, Virginia is a National Historical Site. Matthew.
Maggie Walker.
That is correct. He was a graduate of Annapolis and had a 22-year military career. 5 of those years were spent as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. Who was this? Matthew.
John McCain.
Correct. Senator from Arizona. To date, which European ruler holds the record for having had the longest reign? Matthew.
Napoleon.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk?
Me.
Austin?
Victoria.
That is incorrect. Now, I really need you to hit your buzzer, okay? It's Louis XIV of France at 72 years and 110 days. What does the C stand for in Einstein's E = mc squared? Hayden.
The speed of light.
Correct. Jeffrey, the mascot for Toys R Us, is what type of animal? Hayden?
Giraffe.
Correct. The Jewish holiday of Hanukkah lasts for how many days and nights? Matthew?
8.
Correct. In the classic cartoon television show, who is Barney Rubble's title character best friend? Matthew?
Fred Flintstone.
Correct. Tiger, swallowtail, viceroy, and monarch are types of what insect? Hayden?
Butterfly.
Correct. Name the type of musical work beginning with the letter M that designates a pastoral song developed in Italy that was popular in the 16th and 17th centuries. Matthew?
Melody.
That is incorrect. Nansemond-Suffolk? Catherine? March. It would be madrigal. Named for an English monarch, what river runs between the cities of Portsmouth and Norfolk, Virginia? Austin?
James.
That is incorrect. Trinity Episcopal? Matthew?
Charles.
It's the Elizabeth River. And that buzzer means one more toss-up round just ahead, and we'll double the point value. Stay tuned to see which of our teams is today's winner and going on to the next round here on Battle of the Brains.
Love Battle of the Brains? Ready for your high school team to play next season? Get in touch. Go to battleofthebrains.net to learn more. Welcome back to Battle of the Brains.
Here are the scores as we head into the final round here on Battle of the Brains. Our team from Trinity Episcopal School with 205 points. Our team from Nansemond-Suffolk Academy with 25 points. And in this final toss-up round, the point score for a correct answer is doubled. So is the penalty for an incorrect answer given before I finished reading the question. There is no deduction for an incorrect answer to a completed question. All right, good luck, teams. This is our final toss-up round. And watch the screen right now and listen carefully. Here's another Virginia-based video question from a member of the Battle of the Brains Brainy Bunch. And again, wait until the question is completed before buzzing in.
A plaque on the Virginia Beach Legends Walk honors this man, the first American astronaut in space.
Austin?
Neil Armstrong.
That is incorrect. Trinity Episcopal? Vincenzo?
Buzz Aldrin.
It actually was Alan Shepard. All right, you may need your pencil and paper for this. What is the derivative of the following? 3x cubed minus 4x squared plus 7x plus 6. Catherine?
9x squared minus 8x plus 7.
That is correct. Her 2012 novel, Home, is about Frank Money, an African-American Korean War soldier who returns to the United States to find his missing sister. Name this Pulitzer Prize-winning author for fiction and Nobel Prize winner for literature. That would be Toni Morrison. What four-letter word refers to a tight cluster of things, a node on a piece of lumber, or a unit of speed in navigation? Hayden?
A knot.
Correct. Thanks in large part to keeping his shield polished, what hero slew Medusa? Matthew?
Perseus.
Correct. What letter of the alphabet was used as an abbreviation during World War II to refer to German? Matthew?
U.
That's correct. German submarines were called U-boats. What is the name of the branch of mathematics divided into integral and differential branches? Hayden?
Calculus.
Correct. What ordinal hour on the clock refers to the last possible moment to take effective action? Matt Hayden?
11.
11th hour, correct. What is defined as the four-dimensional continuum, or one temporal and three spatial coordinates in which any event or physical agent,
Space-time.
that is correct, is located? The Oxford English Dictionary spells this member of a small irregular fighting group with two sets of double letters. Spell guerrilla. Austin?
G-U-E-R-R-I-L-L-A.
That is correct. How many gables did the house have in Nathaniel Hawthorne's Hayden?
7.
In his famous novel, House of the Seven Gables. Outside of Asia, what American city serves as host to the largest Chinese New Year's celebration? Austin?
San Francisco.
Correct. This element is a gas at room temperature, and its name is derived from the Greek word for hidden. Discovered in 1898 and with an atomic number of 36, name this element that might remind Superman of his long-lost home planet. Hayden?
Krypton.
Correct. Mecca, the holiest city in Islam, is located in which country? Matthew?
Saudi Arabia.
Correct. What is the name of the software company known for its graphics programs that shares its name? Matthew.
Adobe.
Correct. Shares its name with a building material commonly used in southwestern U.S. In football, what player begins every play by Austin?
Quarterback.
That is incorrect. I'll finish the question. Begins Matthew.
Center.
Correct. Snapping the ball to the quarterback. He held the titles Baron of the Nile and Viscount Copenhagen. Name this British naval hero who died during the 1805 Battle of Trafalgar. Austin.
James Jones.
That is incorrect. Trinity? And that is Horatio Nelson. In what year was the famous Woodstock Music Festival held in upstate New York? Austin.
1969.
That is correct. Santiago had gone 84 days without catching a fish. Then he hooks the largest marlin he'd ever seen, fights it for 3 days, but returns with only a skeleton. What is this novel by Ernest Spencer?
Moby Dick.
That is incorrect. A novel by Ernest Hemingway. Charles.
The Old Man in the Sea.
That is correct. No Excuses, Dear Future Husband, and All About That Bass. Catherine.
Meghan Trainor.
Correct. And that buzzer is the end of our match. While our judges double check the final score, here's a reminder of how to stay connected with us here at Battle of the Brains.
Stay up to date with Battle of the Brains. Follow along as your favorite teams advance this season. Visit battleofthebrains.net to learn more. And follow the show on social at Battle of the Brains. As we continue round one in this current season of Battle of the Brains, join us next week as we welcome Ocean Lakes High School versus Hermitage High School.
Now, here's the final score for today's match, determining which of our teams will continue on in this season's competition. With a final score of 125 points, our team from Nansemond-Suffolk Academy, great job today by Audie, Charles, Austin, and Catherine. And our winners today, congratulations, final score 385 points, our team from Trinity Episcopal School. Great job today by Vincenzo, Spencer, Hayden, and Matthew, and they will continue on into the next round with us here on Battle of the Brains. I'm Cheryl Miller. Thank you for watching and playing along here on Battle of the Brains, and we'll see you back here next week. Great match, teams.
Game over. Thank you for watching Battle of the Brains, presented by Virginia 529. Goodbye.